Strange, but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. Bright lights, a hovering craft, and a glowing green ball. Are we alone in the universe? There is a line of thought called the Fermi paradox that is an argument between probability and scope. The universe is large, with billions of suns like our own. Therefore, the probability is high that intelligent life has sprung forth on many planets similar to ours. And with this high probability of life elsewhere, Fermi's paradox asks, where is everybody? There is the thought that we are indeed alone in the universe, or are we, and always have been, on the cosmic highway visited by aliens for tens of thousands of years? This strange but true story was submitted to us by email and tells of an encounter from nearly 40 years ago. It was November of 1981, and my friend and I were walking home one night. We lived in a suburb southeast of Tulsa, Oklahoma called Broken Arrow. She and I were 10th graders at Broken Arrow Intermediate School. At least, that's what it was called back then. We were near the Indian Springs Golf Club that is not too far from the Arkansas River. There were 2 new subdivisions that were being built, and we were walking along a new street that night. At that time, the street was bordered on each side by a dark field. It was a clear fall night, and the stars were bright in the sky. We were picking out constellations and planets, and then we both noticed a brighter one, very visible, that seemed to be moving in a straight line. Maybe it was something normal. Our initial thought was it was probably a satellite, but after a few moments, the bright light stopped, and a smaller light seemed to emerge from the brighter light. This smaller light flew straight down from it, then turned at a right angle and continued flying. We both thought that was pretty strange. But it's what happened next that still frightens me. A few seconds after we saw the smaller light emerge, my friend yelled at me to turn and look behind us. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. About 100 feet from us, hovering maybe 30 feet above a telephone pole, was a flat-bottomed craft. This was not the same craft we had seen emerge from the bright light. This craft was so close that we felt that it must be observing us, since we were the only people out in this field at the time. We ducked into some low underbrush beside the street for cover and continued to watch. It was not brightly lit, which was a little surprising considering the other 2 objects we had just seen. There was a sort of soft light emanating from the top of the craft, because I could make out the outline of the craft in the dark sky. It seemed to be a little more than 30 feet in diameter, which was easy to estimate given its proximity to both of us and also to the telephone pole. It had a somewhat oval shape, not quite round. I could see the bottom of the craft well enough for me to just make out some sort of protruding cube-like structures, and something that looked to me like ductwork. Have you ever seen the roof of an apartment building? The underside of the craft looked a little like that. It hovered for a long time. I can't say for sure how long, but we both noticed it was very quiet. No engine noise to speak of, but a sort of windy, whistling hum to it. We were nervous. We felt like we were being observed, and we really felt threatened. Despite feeling panicky, we tried our best to make sense of what we were seeing. We were frantically taking notes together, blurting out the things that we noticed, confirming that it was really happening. Finally, the craft started slowly moving at the same low altitude to the east, toward the subdivision where we both lived. We stood up out of the brush, feeling a little braver than before, and followed it since it seemed like it was departing. We followed for only a few seconds. Then, suddenly, it zoomed off at an incredible speed, disappearing to the east in a moment. This acceleration was not preceded by any noise, and even when it flew off, there was no detectable sound. It was just gone. My friend then told me to look to the right of her. There, floating gently to the ground, was a glowing, greenish ball of light. It looked like ectoplasm and electrical. It continued to float to the ground and then disappeared a few feet away from us. We paused for a moment, stunned by what we had just witnessed. We then took off running to her house to grab a camera. It was 1981, after all, if only we had smartphones in our pockets back then. When we got back to the house, we were obviously excited. While we were looking for a camera loaded with film, we told her family what we had just seen. Her younger brother and stepsister and stepbrother were all very excited, but I could tell her parents didn't believe us. Before we went back outside, we called the airport, tried the local Air Force office, and even called the local police. I guess nobody took two excited teenagers from the suburbs very seriously, because even though the police said they would come out, they never did. And the airport wouldn't comment on possible anomalous radar hits. With this being a time long before the internet, and since we were not very educated on the topic of UFOs, we weren't aware of any agencies to which we could report our encounter. I remember we did ask the airport official about Project Blue Book, but he said it had been terminated 12 years before. After skywatching unsuccessfully for maybe an hour more, we decided we had better get home. It was a school night, and we had to be up in a few hours. I went home and told my parents what had happened. As the youngest of 3 kids and in high school, I was the last kid left at home. I was not a rebellious kid in high school and had a good relationship with my parents, so my mother believed me because she said she had never known me to lie about such things. My father just thought I was being over-imaginative, and that there was probably a rational explanation. After that night, we would go back to the scene of the sighting often, take a picnic blanket, hot tea, cocoa, some snacks, and spend hours in the dark scouring the skies full of stars, so clear without light pollution then, hoping our craft, or any craft, would come back for a visit. But it never happened again. My friend had another encounter the following spring, though. It was in the afternoon, and she was walking around the block to my house. When she got there, she was flushed and out of breath. She managed to tell me that as she was on the sidewalk near my house, she saw another glowing green orb that resembled the one we had seen several months earlier. This time, however, the ball of light flew up from behind her, circled her slowly, and then flew away quickly. She said it was almost as if it was teasing her playfully. She also said it had like a vapor trail behind it. We never told any of our friends or anyone at school about our encounters. We weren't looking for attention and certainly didn't want to get picked on for it. The encounters certainly did pique our interests in UFOs and other paranormal subjects, and I was delighted when the subject became more mainstream in the last 15 or so years. In 2007, I finally reported our sighting to the National UFO Reporting Center. I understand why people would be skeptical about many of the sightings reported, but obviously they have never seen this type of craft at such close range like we did. It did not behave in any fashion according to the technology that we had in 1981, or for that matter, even now. And the other 2 craft, further out in the night sky, were also unexplainable. And then there's that greenish, glowing ball of light. This has been another strange but true story, submitted to us by a viewer just like you. Have you had a true encounter with a UFO that you would like to share with us? Tell us about it. Send us an email at strangebutTrueStories2@gmail.com. Leave us a comment and let us know what you thought of this true encounter, and subscribe for weekly videos. thanks to all those that have. You are an amazing group of supportive people, and we appreciate you. I'm Steve White. Thanks for watching. Until next time.